Welcome to Painting Wellness. I'm Dr. Emerald. Alongside me here is...
Katherine Garcia.
Uh,
and today we're going to talk about pain.
we're going to talk about pain with the body, and around how, like, one of the things I hear a lot of is why does, like, I didn't know this was here. I didn't know that this was hurting right now until you pushed on it.
That's right.
And, like, you were definitely pushing on it way harder.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it hurts way more.
I've experienced this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm just a big meanie, which may be true.
Yes.
Yeah. So Kat, why don't you give me maybe your experience or your question, because you were asking me about this, and then we were like, stop.
Let's not talk about this.
We're not talking about this yet. Until now.
Yes. You're my chiropractor.
Hero? Oh,
You're
yeah,
yes.
chiropractor.
A hero. Yes, my chiropractor. So one of the things that I found is we actually met after my pretty severe car accident, and I didn't realize how much things hurt until you start pushing on them. And I always wonder about that because I'm like, well, how did I not know that hurt? Like, and that's where I'm like, well, you're just pushing hard. Like, of course it's going to hurt. It hurts like, it hurts if I do this. And it's like, stop doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, all fun games until you're actually like, oh, no, that hurts. I feel like that's so much pain, right? And I just don't quite understand, like, first of all, how do you know the spots that hurt? Because, like, it's like magic. Like, you're like, oh, does it hurt here? Oh, yes, it does. And how do as people, from a chiropractic standpoint,
mm-hmm.
how do we not know? Because it's our body. We should know, right? Like,
Yeah. So those are a lot of questions. They're all great, and you're gonna have to remind me because
okay.
I was trying my best to listen, but I was also trying to think of how I was gonna respond to these things. Oh man, let's get this up here.
Okay.
So let's start. Maybe we'll work our way backwards. So how? I think it's backwards at this point. How did we not know that something was hurting? Mm-hmm. When it was, because it's our body, and shouldn't we be able to realize that, like, something is going on
mm-hmm.
if it's there?
Yeah.
Ideally, yeah, that would be great. That would be really good.
Yeah.
I would love that. Unfortunately, or maybe just the way that we tend to live our lives now, it's very fast paced. We have a lot of things constantly in the front of our minds, and some things get pushed off to the side, and they're more periphery, and then they get pushed way back. And I would say, as a generality, we tend to push how our body is feeling to the back, unless if it is affecting something that we really love, and then it becomes an issue and we really want to mm-hmm. address it. And so I always, there was a quote, I have no idea who said it, I love it though. It says that our body is always talking to us. It's just a matter of if we're listening. Mm. The other piece is that our body tends to whisper to us until it needs to scream.
Yeah, I think my body's mute.
One. Your body, maybe, or you just gotta, like...
Or I'm really hard of hearing.
Maybe.
Perhaps.
Sometimes I feel that way too with my body.
Yeah.
I just told you a couple of minutes ago that I know that I'm stressed when I start to eat a lot of sweets. And that's like a key in for me of my body talking to me, of saying like, hey, we're like pushing into overdrive here for maybe a little bit too long.
I shop for shoes. You
shop for shoes? Hey, so this is a way that your body is somewhat talking to you, and it's saying like, hey, these are the patterns that we're going through, and it's just a matter of, are we cueing into that, or are we just saying, oh no, I just like to shop, as opposed to this is a pattern of ways that our body is just saying like, hey, yeah, there's something going on.
Yeah, for sure.
So I like to just practice in anytime I'm noticing there's a pattern that I'm doing. And like one of them is another piece where I get emotionally stressed. I love to eat pizza. So if I'm emotionally stressed and you see me eating, like, you're like, hey, isn't this like your 5th pizza today? And I'm like, oh no, I'm probably
and that
like
candy bar. What's up with that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like maybe doc, you should do a little check-in.
That's right.
But just little things like that, or like when you're maybe working out or at the gym, do certain movements create some discomfort for you? Mm-hmm. A lot of times we like to push through that type of stuff, but over time our body is going to stop sending as many signals because we're not paying attention to it anyways, until it gets to a big area of like a big point where like it just hurts so much because it's tearing. Excuse me. It's that candy bar. And that's when we really like our body is like we just can't keep going anymore because we're at a catastrophic level that we're breaking down. Because our body is really good at keeping us going and starting to cut away things in order to keep us at like waking up in the morning, getting to our jobs, doing all these things. So let's wrap that up because I feel like I really gathered there for a second. Our body is always communicating to us. It's just a matter of if we are in touch to understand what it's trying to tell us. It will tend to, in my opinion, only really start shouting when it's no longer able to continue keeping you going. So if it's like I threw out my back and I was just picking up a pencil or I was picking up my kid, right? That back problem didn't just happen. That's been there probably for months or even years. It just got to a point where we hit a catastrophic level and things gave out.
Yeah, because I always wonder, like, how, my poor husband hurt his back a couple years ago, and I said, what were you doing? He's like, I stood up. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. What do you mean you just stood up? And then, of course, we're self-deprecating humans, and we're like, ha ha ha, we're old.
Yeah.
And, that's what happens.
Well, and even on that old piece, like my response to that is always like age really only matters in three things: wine, cheese, and good whiskey. As far as the body goes, like it's just a number, and it's whatever we mentally want to associate with. What does that mean?
Yeah.
But what we do throughout the day, we're making choices of either going towards health or going towards.
Well, but we wouldn't ever say, oh yes, it's because you probably have hurt your back and you've not been unattended, or you haven't taken care of it. We say, oh, I probably just slept wrong. Oh, it's my age, or oh, I probably was sitting cross-legged like this and I shouldn't have done that. Or so we never think, gosh, this is a problem that's probably been sitting here for a long time and I just haven't listened to my body and addressed it like I'm supposed to.
Yeah, well, and I mean that also goes back to like in our culture here in the U.S., are we really looking at underlying causes, or are we more of a like quick fix, Band-Aid, and then move on type of a culture? I think we know, like, or at least that's an assumption, but I feel like we tend to just like, let's just repair it, let's patch it up, let's fill the pothole really fast, and then we can just keep moving.
Yeah.
But eventually, like things, as I said before, deteriorate to a level that then the infrastructure is totally at a place that there's building code violations all over the place. So hopefully that like answers that one piece of that question. And then going back to like, why does it hurt? Why didn't I know it was hurting until you were pushing on it? I think it's again like, are we really listening to our body when it's communicating to us? Because like, let's say if you were having some neck pain, or you didn't know that you were having neck pain until I was kind of checking things out there, you probably have noticed that, oh yeah, my neck gets really tired or it feels strained. But as soon as it's out of that period where you're kind of rubbing it and you've moved on to the next thing, you've forgotten about that. And it's not until you're in that moment that you're like, oh yeah, it does hurt, but we're just so trained at kind of just quickly moving past it that we don't add up the score of how our body is telling us that there's stuff going on there.
Yeah. And when I asked you that question, I was thinking about after my car accident. I remember you used to try to adjust my sternum, and it was just so incredibly painful. But I never recognized that hurt. Like, I was never necessarily uncomfortable that I would notice, or in pain. But the moment that you kind of adjusted my sternum or my ribs, it was just like the pain was so incredible. And I felt better after you adjusted me, but I didn't even realize it. And so it's that kind of thing. It's like, how is it possible that this is so tender and it's so really kind of bad? And I walking around like nothing, like nothing happened. And, because I even remember that it took me, 35 days after my accident to even come in and get help and try to figure that out. I waited till my fingers were numb.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
I was like, welcome.
Yeah, well, you waited a long time. But doctors kept telling me that. I'm like, but it was like, oh, no, I'm good. Like, this is, maybe a little bit of whiplash. So it's very interesting to me that it can be, even that severe. Yeah. And we just didn't realize at all.
Well, I mean, I think there's definitely, too, a hope of, it'll just get better on its own. And so there is that, playing back and forth, and I'll say, full disclosure, I do that too at times. I'm like, oh, let's just wait and we'll see if things get better on its own. ideally, what I recommend, and I too try to do my best myself, is like, what are things that I can do to support my body, even if I am kind of in a waiting pattern? So is that like even just breathing, stretching, getting into a chiropractor, mental health, whatever it might be, to help assist the body in that repair? Because our body is great at repairing ourselves. That's what it's designed to do. But if things get to a point where they continue, it's like we've pushed that like, shoot, what are the domino piece, and then it just continues to grow and grow. That's where my big concerns are, because what used to be a very contained thing now is starting to spread throughout the rest of the system. So whiplash from a car accident, 30 days later, the nerve has been irritated for so long that now you're having numbness in your hands.
Yeah.
That becomes a much, like a new degree of severity than it was if it was addressed earlier on, even when you weren't necessarily having as many things going on, or it wasn't as painful. But also, I mean, like, we're just trying to figure out, like, how is your body responding to? And I think that's another learning piece where we talked with your sternum specifically. It was like, yeah, this is less than comfortable right now, but think of like the force and also how important is this area for your body? So, you know, you have your lungs, your heart, just to name two major organs.
Yeah.
If there's something going on there, yeah, your body wants to let you know that there's some serious stuff going on. But if we've never really taken time to explore that area, you know, it's like it's a new experience. We may have a hard time trying to describe what that is too.
Yeah. And note, don't wait 35 days after a car accident. Always get checked.
Totally, yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, we think, like, I got a lot of education from you when that happened. Like, you know, even if it's going, like, I don't know what you said, some miles an hour, that I was like, what? No way. Just that little bit. Like, yeah. And so, you know, public service announcement, don't wait 35 days to go after fender bender or any kind of car accident.
Yeah, I think around like 3 miles an hour. We'll just say like 5 miles an hour, like you can have whiplash, which is like wild. Watch a slow motion video of like even just a slow impact, because physics, there's a lot of momentum and weight in that, which does that. But anyways, yeah, specifically like with the piece of not waiting, it only takes about like 28 days for scar tissue to form, sometimes even less. So if we can get in there before, and again, this is like being proactive in health, then we don't have to try to get rid of the scar tissue. It's just we're helping that change and that adaptation before we have to then go back in and do a lot of deeper work too.
Yeah. And I remember a couple of months ago, we talked in one of the podcasts about, I think it was actually our first podcast, about how we don't make time to take care of ourselves because of this and because of that. And in that particular case, I remember even going to my primary care doctor, like, why did you wait so long? You even told me, why did you? And I kept hearing, I'm like, could you just stop? Like, why do you keep asking me this? And it's the idea of like, I'm fine. It's just whiplash. Everything's okay. I'm busy. I run a business. I don't have time. And so knowing, I didn't know about the 28 days and all the scar tissue and all that stuff, and what a difference it could have maybe made if I had come earlier. So it's just so interesting to me. And again, I didn't realize that there was so much pain or so much damage or so.
Yeah, and that's always the balance, especially, I mean, we all have busy lives, to an extent, and it's how long can we keep pushing that edge before all of a sudden we're not able to do all those things that we would like. And that's the balance too, where I like to talk and understand with people, like, where are you, like, what can you commit to make this work out for all parties involved. Because I still want you to be able to run your business, spend time doing the things you love and with your family. I'm also thinking about, well, if we don't do anything, just from my experience, it's going to get to a point where you may not be able to do any of that anyways, because you're in so much pain. You were having like really bad headaches too, right? Like, and that was, like, you were like, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your thought on, like, and I don't know if like this is out of scope or not, but like people taking ibuprofen for body pains that they don't, maybe, I feel like sometimes people are like, no, I don't want to be adjusted, that scares me, or whatever. But I, you know, it's just muscular, so I'm not going to go to my regular doctor. So they're like pounding back the ibuprofen and the, you know, Tylenol and things like that to sort of mask the pain. Like, what is your thought on that? Is that like, you know?
So, I mean, medications are certainly out of my scope, so I can't can't, like, you're gonna have to talk to your primary care on like what you shouldn't take. But what I can say is like the way that those, like an ibuprofen anti-inflammatory works is, part of what it's doing is it's blocking the signals from your brain to those areas. And I mean, inflammation is an important response to healing. And it's a way that our body is able to cushion things, so like it supports the joint or that area. It's also bringing new blood and nutrients into those areas. So when we start to change our body's way of managing something like that, it's not able to do what it's designed to do.
So are you saying that it doesn't take the inflammation away, it just takes the receptors, it numbs the receptors?
I mean, it's changing the reaction within how the body responds to that.
Okay.
And so, it's not like it just like, shuts the door necessarily, like, oh, you can't come in here type of a deal. It just is the body isn't going to respond to the injury in the same way. And that's a really important piece for the body to heal. And, I mean, they're even, so similarly what people might do is like, oh, I'll just ice something, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's been like a long, like, back and forth of if ice is even a good thing. And it's kind of like now swinging back towards, well, if we ice, we're not allowing the body to do the repair that it needs, which is similar to ibuprofen. My other concern around, if I think there's certainly a time and place for medication, but what I always like to tell people is just remember that you're taking these things. And so if you can't feel something, it doesn't mean that it's not there or it's not hurting.
Yeah.
And so that's always my
and it can always
piece.
make it worse because you might overextend or might do whatever.
Yeah,
right?
and so that's generally my piece. Is I tell people, like, talk with your doctor, whatever you feel comfortable with, right? It's your body. But I always want to just let you know that, like, just because you're not feeling it, it could certainly be something that we may not remember in the moment that is a problem, right? Because our body's response to when there's an injury or there's something going on is pain. And pain generally limits someone from doing the thing that would make it worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if it hurts to say, like, lift our arm to grab something because we have a bad shoulder, that's also like helping to stabilize that area the pain is, because we're not like overextending.
So you're saying that we shouldn't like climb and just keep trying to lift with our like a T-Rex arm?
Well, some people can. Don't tell a T-Rex that. So
he's like, oh, I can't extend, so I'm just gonna climb. Listen, I'm a mom, so I'll make sure that I
just keep going.
I have no time, so I'm gonna use my little T-Rex arms.
Yeah. I think I've told you that one time, and I will never forget it, and I always tell the story because I love it, is someone, they could not lift their arm, they couldn't do anything with their left arm, and I asked him, are you concerned about that? And he said, no, my right arm's great and I'm right-handed. And I was just like,
you see,
great.
I'm telling you, the kind of stuff we make up, it's incredible. And one of the things that you did say that I really love, and you've said it to me several times, and I've heard you tell other people, is it's not a problem till it becomes a problem in doing something you love. And many times I tell my patients that, like, it's not a problem until it stops your functionality, or we measure progress on how are you functioning within mental health. And so I think that applies to a lot. And I always like when you say that because it's so true. Like, we keep doing stuff until it's like, it really bothers us because we can't do something we want to do. If it stops us from doing other stuff, I'll climb a little step and use my T-Rex arms. But if maybe I can't do something that I really enjoy, then it's a problem.
Yeah. And I guess a large part of me wishes that there was, like, we were motivated to just do things because it was great for us. But there usually is an underlying reason why we want to make those changes.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. It's like, a lot of times it is like, oh, I can't do this with my kids anymore, or I can't golf. I don't know, whatever it might be. Like, the things that we really love, that's when I see people are most motivated. And so take those opportunities too of saying, like, all right, well, let's make a plan. Let's discuss, like, what is the real reason that or what is the thing that you really want to be doing more of in order to experience it, and that's why you're here. Yeah. So I think there was some other questions in there that we can. I think those were like the main ones. It's like,
how do we not know that that's happening? Why does it hurt? When you push, and we don't know, and and the why is it that our bodies respond that way? And so you did a good job gathering and putting all that information. So today, I'm going to be doing the hunting. I know you kind of started hunting. I'm like, what's he doing?
I know.
You're
I'm
the
sorry.
gatherer today. So okay, so I'm gonna kind of synthesize. Let's see how I do, because this is my first time hunting.
You're gonna do great.
Yeah, I'm the gatherer, but we'll figure it out. So okay, so our bodies do give us signs. They either speak softly or give us messages, and we need to listen. We need to pay attention to what our bodies are saying before it gets to the point where our body's literally screaming at us. And we need to make sure that we're cautious with adjusting how we do things or medications and things like that, because that might just be like temporarily numbing the problem if we don't go see our doctor and take care of whatever and let the body heal.
Yeah, I want to be, maybe I'm being overly cautious around, just because I want to make sure that I'm in scope. But like, talk with, if it's medication stuff, always talk to your doctor, your primary
But
care
don't pretend
MD.
that the medication like ibuprofen is going to just heal it.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
you want to make sure you go to the doctor and you get that taken care of and looked at so you can actually heal. If something's hurting, don't wait a long period of time. Make sure you go see your provider right away, because earlier assessment and treatment is better. And I think that's it.
I think those are the big ones.
And don't get angry at your chiropractor when they poke, because that's their job.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there can be areas that you don't realize that are very sensitive, because we have just not been focusing on that area. It's kind of like it's like if you're suddenly looking for slug bugs because you're playing the slug bug game, you're going to see them all over the place. But if you're kind of oblivious to it, you may not even notice that they're around still. Yeah. So it's very similar, like you're all of a sudden paying attention to that area and like, oh yeah, it is like really bothering me all the time. So yeah, I mean, get in touch with your body. It has a lot to tell you, and the more that you're communicating, I feel like people are more empowered with their health too when they're more connected with their body, because they feel like they can make these decisions that are best for them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Well,
thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. That was good. That was good.
Instinct.
All right. Welcome to the